Now here's a good one from Sir Non-Applicable, who supered us saying, why does dark, depressing zones like, say, Tirisfal Glades or Duskwood work, but them all fail? That's a fun one. So I think some of that is some narrative context in how those zones are deeply tied into the existing lore of Warcraft and felt very, like, well-placed within the world. How they were a part of your character's journey where you're going through them to another place, and they were just a part of your journey. Some of it's also kind of mechanical, where it's like, hey, this zone is kind of like more like this theme for a bit. Makes sense of the story. We'll do that. You move over somewhere else, but your game mechanics wouldn't necessarily totally ream you for it. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you look at the Maw, like, you know, it's the Maw, it's like, okay, we have a high mob density. We've made your traversal mechanics more annoying. We have the Eye of the Jailer. We, I guess, tried to do a Dark Souls with Stygia, but it doesn't really fit. Like, that kind of thing. And, you know, then for some of those other zones, it's like just the way you're kind of like, you have an issue where those zones like Tirisfal Glades or Duskwood are a part of a broader, more cohesive world that all kind of like exists and works together. Whereas some of these patch zones, they replace the stuff that came before it and they funnel everyone into spending like their default non-instanced content time in that area. Mm-hmm. And that's like your core Thea problem. So I think it's somewhere along those lines.
Yeah, it's because the game naturally had variety, whereas you're spending a lot of time in the Maw, or between the Maw and like your home zone. So hey, you're going to the Maw, you're going to Bastion. There you go. That's your two zones. Whereas it was Tirisfal, you start in Tirisfal, you go down to Silverpine, and then you're like somewhere nicer after that. You're like, oh, this is good. This is wonderful. It's that variety. Also, there is something different about those zones. And this is hard to elucidate, but I think they weren't as depressing. They were a little bit more, how do I describe this?
It's kind of hard, right?
A little bit more like playing a Resident Evil game, where you're like, this is intentionally kind of grim, but it didn't replicate that in gameplay mechanics too hard. It was like the atmosphere was the atmosphere alone in the story. And then obviously you killed undead or a Worgen River, but it wasn't like actually trying to kick you in the head in a way that the Maw was literally punishing. So I feel like that gameplay representation of the punishment was the problem a little bit, I think.
Yeah, and then the way I guess that was tied into the like, you know, the whole extrinsic, reasons why you're doing stuff.
Yeah, that too.
In the Maw.
That too.
Yeah.
That's the part that gets really like, I think really interesting, and it's why I've been thinking so much about Dragonflight so far. Obviously been playing a ton, but it's all of the little things. It's like, I think a lot of my thought has been, could they have done this better immediately, or what have they done wrong? And my answer is very much nothing that I could see is wrong, and I can't immediately think of a way for this to be profoundly better. Outside of, there's one, I think there was one side quest like, this would have been way better if something very different happened, but that was literally just an opinion thing. Generally, I'm like, oh no, this is like because you always call them the imperceptibles, the stuff that you don't really know because it's not your job to know it and make it. The idea of like, you know, how the average person watches a movie, and if the cinematography is stellar, they will love the movie, but they won't know why. They'll just, all of the ways the camera moved matched how they're supposed to feel during that movie, and they'll come out and be like, wow, it's a great experience. Whereas they might enjoy the same movie with substantially worse cinematography, more boring shots, but this one, it's kind of bored. Like, why? I just didn't really like it very much. But it's like the job of the cinematographer to know what to do there, to match it creatively. And it feels like they've been getting all of the small details substantially more right in terms of how, like, and this isn't just like in terms of writing the quests or laying them out. It's like the pacing of everything, the pacing of how quests blend together in the like actual story, the pacing of like how far world quests are apart at it, like when you start to drag and ride between them, where it's like you don't have to go, especially if you're doing them like kind of traveling salesman efficiently enough, you're not sitting there going, well, it took me too long to get there, so I'm a little bit bored. It's always like, the pacing of everything is just done substantially better than before. And
Yeah.
that translates to World Quest having like a 3.5 day timer where you're sat going, I'm in no rush. I don't have to rush this. I can come back and like, sure, there's like 14 World Quests on my map. Shit, that's a lot of World Quests. But I've got 2.5 days or 3 days to do them. I'll crack out the ones in the Azure span here. Now I'm here. Maybe I'll go Cobalt. Oh, the fucking soup is up. I'll go eat some soup. And you just kind of go around. Oh, there's plenty of stuff to do. It feels just overall better.
And also, your dragon is going at like Mach 5.
Yeah.
Which sure does make the travel bit feel better. Even like in the spacing of the world, it's funny, like, you just bump into a little outpost full of NPCs and quests that you did not run into during the main story. Because I found that a few times in the plains. And it just makes you feel like, oh yeah, there's other people who came here for other reasons. I didn't bump into them when I was doing this main storyline about the Knockhood and the Primalists. Something else going on in this zone. Maybe I should go over there and see.
Yeah, especially when you find, I think that's good for a lot of is the term exogenous, the ones who live there? I don't know.
Exogenous is, well, if you, endogenous would be like ketones that you make.
I think
exogenous would be ketones that you take.
Am I thinking indigenous?
I think it's indigenous, yeah.
Yeah, so the indigenous ones, I'm like, this is pretty good. But I really like the Dragon Scale Expedition Camp. Every time you find a camp, they're doing something interesting. And there's like a nice range of races from around Azeroth. And it's the one in the north of Azure Span, I believe. And it's just, there's the fucking panda and the gnome innkeeper sitting playing Hearthstone. I'm like, this is great. And there's like the health inspector who wants to make sure the water's clean to drink. And the dwarves who are looking you to go get materials to make beer. And these aren't very important, but they're just an expedition looking for stuff. I didn't show up and go, all right, over there's a load of native tribes that are annoying us, so kill them all, please, like we've historically done in a lot of World of Warcraft. This time it's just, we need some beer, go get us some beer, and you're like, fuck, I might as well. Or, help, there's a ghost stolen my prized Hearthstone card, go get it back so I can duel it. And you're like, yeah, it's great. It's actually just, it's fun stuff, and it's completely disconnected from anything. It's literally just a fun little thing to do. And it's not always super, because I think that's what I remember a lot of. It
rounds out and flavors the world.
It's what I remember about the Shadowlands side quests. They all felt very much, we have to make sure everything lends into this sense of the Shadowlands being in danger and things going wrong, so you have to sort things out. Even with the bit where you did the past stuff in Bastion, I was all like, there's a point to this. There's a point to this because obviously if the Void have invaded Bastion back in the past, and that's something I have to fucking worry about and think about. It's like I was saying with, I suppose you did Gorm in the main story and then Gorm again, with all like the mask people for all the Persona 5 reference quests and Ardenweald. You're like, this is all like, this is just the Drust. This is just a lead into the Drust stuff that was cut. But I know all that. Whereas this, like, I just fucking Hearthstone. Here's some Hearthstone. Here's some beer. Here's some this. What's this quest about? This quest chain about. This quest chain is about a dragon who misses his era.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Westfall pie.
Yeah.
It's Westfall pie. Just means fuck all.
Yeah.
Just making some pie in Westfall.
Yeah. Or another one.
Like, that's the thing I did.
Yeah, or the other one in the south of the west of Iron Plains. Although there's an ancient. Ancient's got a couple quests. What are the quests? The Ancient's looking after some ducks. That's the quest. And it's fucking great. Because the Ancient talks about why he looks after the ducks, how he's looked after the ducks, how long it's been, and his history. All very casually while you're looking for ducks. And then he says to you, careful of Pilot, they're always jumping down to things. And then you go look for Pilot, and you see Pilot climbing up a rock and jumping down. And you're like, this is great. A duck jumping off a rock after I was told the duck jumps off a rock is what video games are all about.
Are they making a high fantasy world feel like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously then you get that duck as well. You're like, yes! And then you immediately don't care because battle pets and that system sucks, but whatever. It doesn't suck. I'm just not a fan.
Who knows? Maybe they'll do something with that. It seems like that one was a big commitment and they're like, how do we keep this going?